Hey everyone, it's Ardith. Welcome to 2020. I thought it would be fun to start the new year off with a tour of my craft room. I'm lucky enough to have our smallest bedroom designated as my craft studio, and it's filled with a mixture of things I've bought specifically for it over the past 14 years, as well as some leftover furniture from the rest of the house that I just make work. It has a very tall window and a vaulted ceiling, so there's a ton of natural light during the daytime, which is great for card making, but not always so great for recording videos. My main workspace is a discontinued IKEA desk with an Alex unit on each side. I have cubbies in front of me that were floor models at Pottery Barn Kids ages ago. I like to have everything within arm's length, so this setup works really well for me. I have 2 IKEA clamp lamps on my desk as well, with my own homemade light diffusers, also known as sheets of vellum. They're very flexible and can easily be moved around for close work lighting or for video lighting. You can see my black Archon mount in the middle. That holds my phone camera over my work surface when I'm recording card making videos. On top of one of the cubbies is my ink storage unit from Organize More. It works perfectly for my Catherine Pooler inks, at least for now. If she releases too many more, I'll be in trouble. I'll admit that at first I didn't love the oval shape of these ink pads, but now I use it to my advantage. I store them kind of facing to the right. Unless they need to be re-inked, then I store it facing left to remind me before I use it again. Now let's take a closer look at my desktop. Just to my left, on the surface, is my box of baby wipes. This box is sturdy and refillable and works well with the wipes from Costco. Under my cubby, I have this Alex add-on unit with 2 drawers. I keep stuff I don't use very often in the drawers, and inside I have these little drawers that came from one of those tool room organizers that you might store nails and screws and things like that in. Across the bottom of the cubby are all my Copics. I created extra dividers with layered up cardstock so that I can have them sorted by color families. Above that, I have more of the plastic drawers. The first one has my purple tape and the fluffy brush I use to brush extra glitter off cards before their photo shoots. The next one has 1-inch Post-it tape. I use this for masking or just holding dies in place when I run them through my Gemini Junior. On the front is a note to remind me about lighting and positioning of my camera when I'm shooting card making videos. And the third drawer has all my erasers. Moving in closer, this is the gap between the 2 drawers. I have 2 more of the little plastic drawers. The first one is for my black inks and my embossing ink, and the second one holds my smaller acrylic blocks. Next to these is the plug for my Gemini FoilPress. It goes down behind the desk and plugs into a power bar down on the floor, and just makes it easier to get organized when I want to do some foiling. To my right, I have this little turnabout organizer. I got it at HomeSense a while ago, and I love it because it has this slot in the center that fits both my original and my mini MISTI. I keep my Copic color chart here too. And oh, there's a magnet I've been looking for. They always turn up eventually. Speaking of these magnets, I got them on Amazon. They're about 1/8 of an inch thick and about 1.25 inches in diameter. I find them easier to lift up and pull apart from each other than the other thicker magnets, and they still hold my project in place. As for the rest, I keep my scissors and my most used tools here. I found some square spice jars that fit perfectly, and they help to divide the bigger areas and keep things more organized. So I've got glue, tape runner, gel pens, pencils, craft pick, jewel picker, tweezers, die snippers, stuff like that. I keep the most used on one side and the rest on the back. Now this is the other drawer in that Alex add-on unit where I keep things I don't use very often, and this one's full of washi tape. In the little cubby above, I have pre-cut white cardstock, Neenah, watercolor, and Bristol. I find having it pre-cut makes my card making process more efficient, and it's handy to have it right in reach here. Up here, I have my Brother label maker. This one connects wirelessly to the app on my phone, so it's really quick and easy to use. My 2-inch Post-it tape fits here as well. I use that for masking quite a bit, and you can see my full back sticky notes to the right of that. Up here are some of my blending brushes. I have more than one set, and I store them in these old Stickles containers that I had on hand. I had to stack 2 of them together for it to be high enough to really hold the brushes properly, but they fit perfectly in this part of the cubby, and I loved that I could use something I had on hand rather than having to buy something new. I have another cubby to the right, and it's less full, but it does have my Catherine Pooler mini inks and some acrylic drawers. In Canada, we have a Japanese store called Muji that sells these drawers, but you can also get them on Amazon. I have a drawer full of my ink daubers as well, one for each of my Catherine Pooler inks. And before we move away from the desk, I have one more thing to show you. This is a shoe rack that I have under my desk to create some shelving to store things like envelopes and extra baby wipes. I have a little fan there because it gets hot up here in the summer, and a few other little bits and pieces that probably need a proper home. Behind my desk, I have an old 3-drawer dresser that no one else wants in their room. On top, I keep my design team stamps and dies. These are the ones I reach for the very most. I have the double fridge bins for the 4x6 inch sets, and I have 6x6 clear cubes for the large sets and stencils. To store my stamps, I use Ellen Hudson stamp pockets, and I trim them down so they don't have the flap over the top. That's just my preference. Then I color code the top of the card so that I know which type of set it is. No color means that the set is mostly images. For stamps that have matching dies, I keep them in the back. And I keep any extra stamping or die cuts in the pocket too, in case I can use them in a future project. Blue is for leading ladies, which are exclusively Ellen Hudson products. Pink is for floral stamps. Yellow is for background stamps. Red is for Christmas stamps, and orange is for autumn and Halloween stamps. Finally, green is for sentiment sets. I've been using this system for years, and I find that it really helps me to locate things faster. I don't bother keeping things in alphabetical order. Now, next to the stamps, I have all the standalone dies, which I color code with a gray marker. I also have my larger 6x8 stamp sets in this bin. In these drawers, I have some miscellaneous stuff, including my Copic refills. I have them in these plastic boxes that are tilted a bit so I can see them properly and so that the refills don't tip all over the place. Moving on to what I call the toy shelf, which is another old discontinued IKEA unit that was in our basement with the kids' toys on it. It works pretty well in here. Along the top, I have cards that I've just finished, and then I have bins with new releases from my design teams. But no sneak peeks today, sorry. I have a box where I spray my stencils with pixie spray or my card fronts with sparkle spray. And then I have my little mixed media corner. I use a spice rack I found on Amazon. It keeps all my sprays and watercolor powders, Nuvo Dream Drops, Crystal Drops, Glimmer Pastes, mousses, and Glacier Pastes. So many fun things to play with. On the next shelf, I have the rest of my stamps from other companies. One box is non-Christmas, and one box is all Christmas. Then I have my stencils with my stencil pals in front. I try to keep these in alphabetical order so they're easy to find, but I don't have so many that it's difficult to flip through and find what I'm looking for. Behind the stencils are the cling stamps, some 6x6 backgrounds, and then my Catherine Pooler background stamps. To the left, I have all my standalone dies, organized by manufacturer. And you can see I've left another note to myself. This one reminds me which Catherine Pooler word dies I have. On the next shelf are my paper organizers. These ones are just for specialty white cardstock, like letterpress, along with other neutrals, craft, gray, and black. To the right are completed cards that are ready to be sent, donated, or sold. The bottom shelf has various supplies, alcohol ink stuff, extra tape runner refills, my Distress Oxide inks, pattern paper, and some old wooden stamps. Let's move on to the two Alex units. This first one has my Dale printer on top. This monster was not cheap, but the blade is self-sharpening and the cuts are straight and accurate, unless you need a really tiny cut off a small piece of paper. I bought this trimmer ages ago, and I can't imagine ever replacing it. I also have a smaller Fiskars trimmer for my tiny cuts, and my Scor-Buddy. Notice that my Gemini Junior is just to the left, and that's why in the top drawer I keep my cutting plates and instruction manual so they're close at hand. I also keep some scratch paper. I often use this for catching embossing powder when I'm heat embossing. I also keep my most used dies here. I'm talking about the rectangles and squares I use for cards. This means I'm not walking over to my die storage every time I want to make a basic card. I also have all of my nested circles here in a square box lid to help keep them close at hand and somewhat organized. Now these are flat fridge bins that help me divide up these large but shallow drawers in the Alex unit. I actually bought the units for my wood stamps back in the day, but I don't have as many of those anymore, as you'll see in a minute. My next drawer has more of the bins, and I keep scraps of my paper here, so when I need to do a small die cut, I'm not cutting into a new piece of cardstock each time. I have them sorted into white, neutrals, and other. Drawer 3 has lots of watercolor stuff. I have my all-to-new watercolors here, both the regular ones and the new metallic ones, as well as lots of specialty paper. I've got my watercolor paper, some Yupo, and some paper for colored pencils. And this is the case I keep my colored pencils in. It came from Amazon and it's great for traveling. All my brushes are here too. I have the Nuvo set as well as the Ranger set. They're both very inexpensive, but I find they work well for me. I have some black velvet brushes as well, and also some aqua brushes. And here's my favorite drawer of all, my ink blenders and ink refills. These two 8x8 dividers are for essential oils, and they came from Amazon. Each square holds one of my domed blenders from scrapbook.com, and next to it is the corresponding ink refill. I have colored dots on all the tops so I can see where they go, and I've labeled swatches in the bottoms of the squares. I don't have handles for every color, and I don't expect that I ever will, because often being in the color family is close enough. I do like to have a separate blender for the colors I use the most, rather than changing it out. At the back of the drawer I have extra foams and handles and some Stickles colors that I've had for ages. I've got room for a few more if Catherine releases new colors, and I do have one for white pigment ink as well. On the right side are re-inkers for my other inks, mostly black, but also for the pale inks that I use for no-line coloring. The next drawer has my work surfaces, my waffle flower media mat, my metal Make Art station, and my Tim Holtz glass media mat in the travel size. I got the left-handed one since they have it. The last drawer on this side has my mini Mink machine, along with its instruction manual and some foil. I find it good to keep it together since this foil works with this machine and not the FoilPress, and vice versa. That's an old wavy trimmer on the right. It's discontinued, but it's quite useful from time to time. Now I'm moving to the Alex unit that sits to the left of my desk. On top, I have the black plastic tray that I use to take my card photos. You can see a marble wine cooler in front. That holds my heat gun. I know, it's kind of funny, but I like that it holds the gun upright and that I can put it right back in even when it's hot and not worry about damaging anything. Behind that is my foil-lined shoebox lid that I use when I'm heat embossing. I put the piece I'm heating into the lid and I don't have to hold on to it with my fingers. And also the foil reflects back some of the heat and reduces warping. At least I think it does. So the top drawer on this side has all my sequins. I have the Elizabeth holder that has all these little containers of my pretty pink posh sequins and jewels. Some of my other sequins won't fit into the tiny containers, so I left them in their own jars, and some of the ones I use the most I just keep open in other little containers. I also have a couple of dryer sheets in there. I find that just running my hand over them sometimes helps when I'm trying to deal with the static of the sequins. And then just because they fit in here, I have my Zig Art and Graphic twin tip markers in one of those fridge bins. These are water-based markers and there's lots of techniques you can do with them. They fit perfectly in the bin. The next drawer down is my embossing drawer. These are mostly Wow embossing powders, and I have a little sample of the embossing attached to the tops. I like that because sometimes what you see in the jar is not what it looks like when it's melted. Of course, I have my embossing buddy and powder tool in here to help make sure I don't get embossing powder where I don't want it. And my most used powders are over there too, gold, silvers, and white. I have a big jar of clear that doesn't fit into this drawer. I keep the jars of embossing powder in the tops from the Stickles containers that have my blending brushes in. They're not necessary at all, but it's not a bad place to store the lids, and it helps to keep the rows in line. The next drawer is my Gemini foil press. I have all the metal plates that I own on magnetic cards. Underneath, there's the machine, and I have various foils in here as well. I have metal plates from Gemini, Picket Fence Studios, and Spellbinders, and they all work with this machine. I may move the metal plates to something more like my standalone die storage at some point, but right now they're fine here. The next drawer is just full of bits and pieces, mostly embellishments, other sequins, enamel dots, twine, stuff like that. Then the next drawer is glitter. I don't use glitter very much since there are so many less messy alternatives, but it's good to have it on hand, often for crafts other than card making. And the very last drawer has my remaining wooden stamps in it. This is why I originally bought these Alex units and the fridge bins, and you can see that they worked really well. But time moves on, and now I've got way more stamps in way less space. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour. I think I reminded myself of a few things I'd forgotten about. I'll have to pull them out and put them to good use. I'd love it if you gave me a thumbs up below and subscribed for more inspiration. If you have questions or suggestions, please leave a comment below. It would be great to hear your ideas too. As for products, I'll try to link to what I can, but as you heard, a lot of my stuff is older and may not be available anymore. We're all different. We have different stuff that we use in different ways. To me, seeing how others organize is more about getting ideas. Sometimes I do need to get exactly what someone is using, but often I can find another way to accomplish the same thing. One thing I know for sure, I've been collecting supplies and storage for a long time, and my craft room has evolved as the tools and supplies have changed. My craft room today doesn't look like it did 10 years ago, or even a year ago, and next year it'll probably have changed again. I can't wait to see what's coming next. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for stopping by. See you next time.